Okay.
Yeah, man.
And we're in.
There we go.
Just take a little sip of something there. How you doing? Okay, how we doing, guys? How we doing? Welcome, welcome to another edition of the Living Room. We want to welcome those on the tropical religion. Let me say that again. Get see again. Everything tie up today, man. Get my tongue
Down.
die. Tropical Realisms as well. Facebook page also. Welcome. Hey, look, if this is your first time, you're here with us in the living room. Yeah. I'm Andre with my good friends Philip and Mark. And this is the living room, and you're on the We Global platform. And this is where we just have good old Caribbean conversations. That's what we do. We just want to, have the Caribbean have conversations, things that impact us as a people, not just focus on one country or our own country, but it's a Caribbean conversation whenever we get together. So welcome. Do us a favor and hit share. Bring your network in. Tag a few friends or whoever. Tag 10 friends and tell them come into the conversation and let's have a chat. Hey, Michelle. Let's get straight to it. How are we doing, guys?
Yeah. Hit share now, man. Just hit share now.
Hey, Wilfred. Oh, Wilfred. How are you doing?
Yeah, I see Wilfred for a while, actually. Yeah, man. Hi, Wilfred.
There we go. How's it going? Honey, gentlemen, how are we doing?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, doing good.
Yeah,
Sun is out,
good.
man.
Well, yeah.
Mark got me doing good because this is no your time.
Boy, look, listen, when you see the 21st of
yes,
21st.
You don't notice he's always coming. That's the winter in. That winter in is good. The sun's out, so you smile on your face.
Listen. You can't. Don't touch me between now and the end of October. This is my season, right?
I'm surprised you turn the light behind you to yellow or something. So you're feeling a little bit, the sun's out. You're feeling good. The
sun is out, man. There's no greater time of the year, man. Let me tell you, this is it. This is it.
How are you taking advantage of that?
Me, I spending more time outdoors, man. Although today was cool, yeah.
Cool and windy.
Real cool.
Cool and windy.
Y'all know once it start to warm up, the first thing is gonna be in the garden.
Oh Lord, have mercy.
So y'all know.
I got grass pictures today, huh? Or not yet.
I was gonna take some pictures, but I decided, you know what? Don't let me be predictable. So yesterday was out in the garden, getting up the weeds, getting up the moss, that's setting for the winter, doing my spring rake and
Hear the man, Phil. Hear the man.
Clipping off all the plants and just getting the beds ready, I got some beds there and put some carrots.
Yeah, you got beds this year? What?
Man, listen, y'all, you know me, man. You know me. I like my gardening. This is my time of year outside every Saturday morning, down on the knees, getting the grass and things looking good. You know me, man.
I went to Nando's a few weeks ago and we had some tomatoes because I had a salad. I tell you up on salads now, right? Had some salads.
I didn't know that.
And listen, these tomatoes, they taste so good. After this
Nando's story, we need to explore this.
Yeah, come back to it. So
you run over there fast, man.
So, I thought these tomatoes taste real good. Yeah, I bought one of the tissue and said, right, I can put this in the soil because this is the best tomatoes I ever had. So I see it started to spring up yesterday, man. So I'm looking forward to seeing what I can produce over the course of the season, man. Yeah, man.
I have never heard somebody go into a restaurant and keep plants for the garden. I have never. This is a new one.
Man, bite the cucumber. I like this cucumber.
I like this guy. I put in his pocket. I have never heard that in my innovation, boy.
It was good. It was good. I thought this here guy home me. Go on, I planted it.
You haven't touched your salad.
You don't touch it either.
You don't worry about it. You don't worry about it.
It will multiply.
It's good, man. Real good.
This is new. So you're on salads.
Yeah, man. I having a box of salad every day. I know, yeah. Really good.
Only.
That's all.
No meat.
No meat.
Phil.
Okay.
I tried.
Well. Let me just put a little asterisk.
Okay, I know they had an asterisk here. Give me
a little asterisk next to.
I know they had a footnote to this. Anyway, give me the footnote.
Except, I got invited out to lunch today. One of our Jamaican friends invited us around, and there was some oxtail on the table. So
and them is eat grass. them is eat grass. So given that them vegetarian,
You
it's
know,
okay.
It is a
Therefore,
cycle, right? It is a
It's
cycle.
vegetarian meat. Okay.
circle of life.
You know,
Are you all right? Are you all right
can't
with
really
that?
complain about that. So yeah, man, but it's working out well.
You
Working
made
out
you
well.
made an exception today, but otherwise, you're
Yeah,
strictly
yeah.
strictly raw.
Working
veg,
out well,
or-
but when did you start? Let me get some.
I
dates.
going back about a week and a half ago. No, I just take a salad with me every day now, man. And I'm good. I'm good.
And when you're coming on evenings.
That's the main meal. That's the main meal. You know.
Oh,
have
so you're
something-
going
a little
vegetarian.
light. I didn't say that.
That's very understood.
You see, Phil?
Yes,
You see,
salads.
this
You see,
man,
I
this
am not-
man.
listen, I am not responsible
man,
for your
then.
assumptions. I am not
You see?
responsible for your assumptions. I said
This
eating
man is
salad. There's a
proving why
difference.
you have to have follow-up questions when you're speaking to somebody.
Exactly.
He led us to believe that he
no,
was
no.
all on the grass.
Nah, that's
Yeah.
not what I said. That
He
is not what I
inferred
said.
it though, Phil. Did you not capture that? That's what he inferred.
Because we know I doing. He said Nando's.
Yeah.
Then, but I strictly on salads.
But I on salads. That's what he said. So this is why any young journalist out
Nando's
there.
is not famous for salads. as far as
Exactly.
I know. Except tomatoes. They seem to do
Listen,
good tomatoes.
It's corn
I
fried
cannot
chicken.
be
Corn fried chicken.
responsible for your assumptions. I simply said I had
Any
a
young
salad.
journalist.
I never
this is
said I
why
was
you.
vegetarian.
This is why you have to have follow-up questions.
Okay.
Follow-up questions, you see, and
you
get
have-
him in the moment.
So what you mean, Mark, is you have salads for lunch.
Absolutely,
Okay.
100%.
Yes, Angela,
Okay.
that's cross-examination. You have to do it. Otherwise, he led us to believe something that he was not doing.
That's right. Salads for lunch sound good.
Yeah, man, working out really well. I have to say, enjoying it.
Feeling energized and stuff now.
Well, I hear thinking about going on the bike to see if I can. I look at it today, but I ain't too sure. 12.7 miles to the office, but I feel a little bit far, you know, because
Man, that ain't too far, man. You get there easy. 20 minutes.
Hear the man, Phil.
20 minutes. I ain't
Yeah,
too sure
right.
about that.
Yeah, right. Lately.
Well, I don't really. What, 12 miles?
12
about
miles.
20 minutes.
If you're doing for commute to work, that's probably just under an hour.
yeah. That'll take me more than an hour though.
If you're pushing it, you going to exercise, then maybe 40 minutes.
Well, I like some of these fellas that's turned up
Yeah,
at work in
exercising.
the
Yeah,
gear,
exercising,
right?
yeah,
You know, these
yeah,
guys that's turned up
exercising.
at work in the gear. You know them would be going, 50 miles an hour down the road. I just gotta be riding there while looking about.
Yeah, exercising. he exercising. He's one of the men that's got the close pegs at the bottom of the pants.
That's me too. That's me too.
You know, you see,
That is
maybe
me.
close space at the bottom of the pants. He'd be like, "You're on a rider. You just commuting. You're really serious with this thing."
That's me too.
He's one of them.
I
He's
just
one of
said
them.
because I'm not taking the bus. That's me.
He's one of them, man. He's one of them.
That's okay.
There's nothing wrong with it, right, Phil?
No, man, it's fine. Perfectly fine.
No,
There's
no,
nothing
it's
wrong
all
with it,
right.
man.
There's nothing wrong with that. But I give it a go. Give it a try, man. See how you like it.
Yeah, man. I can try it out. So we'll be looking at across the region this week, man. Anything
me?
caught your eye?
You know, things always. I still watching this thing with Paria or however you pronounce it in Trinidad and the investigations and what's not. I still with the divers that passed away.
yeah.
You know, that got sucked into the pipes and stuff. I still checking that because I think that's very important when it comes to safety of workers, especially in the oil industry and what have you.
Absolutely.
And I know one thing, but it seems like a bit of a negligence there on one hand, a little bit of hesitation, unsure what to do, whole bunch of stuff. But at the top of it, I think people are focused on the grieving families, and it was a hard one actually. And the more you read, the harder it becomes reading what's happened there and what was. I don't want to say what was allowed to happen, but just the way how things unfolded at the time and in the aftermath of it, and what have you. It's really hard reading, but I still paying attention to it because I think it's important.
Yeah.
Well, it's the lessons that will come out of it that you really want to try and understand how those are going to be, implemented to prevent future incidents of that nature from happening. It's not a regular thing that happens in the Caribbean, but still, you want to try and make sure that we are all across it as far as any lessons that we need to learn from that are concerned.
Indeed,
So,
yeah.
it's really, really difficult story, that one.
Yeah.
I was quite intrigued by the budget in Barbados on Monday, and there was a particular policy position that I saw the government taking around electric vehicles. So next time you're in Barbados, you might be hiring an electric car, man. or you might have some family there who might be importing one. I don't know.
I could be wrong, but I yet to see an electric. When I was home, I didn't see one electric point to plug
You don't
in
see
the
the
car. So
charging points.
I don't know if you got to run an extension from your bedroom window or something to plug in these cars. But I assume the infrastructure is coming. I'm sure Beijing's gonna correct me now because they always want to cuss me when I say things like that. But I suppose they can correct me and tell me, "Oh no, there are plenty in town." But I didn't see that many. But
You didn't see that many, or you didn't see any?
I didn't see any. Let me put it. Let me put it that way.
Gotta
I
be
didn't
clear.
see any. So you might live in St. Lucie and gotta drive down to charge at your car.
Take back. And we don't always get the how should I put it? The vehicles that we get don't always necessarily be the ones that are top of the line, right? And in some instances, the specification does always seem a little bit further, a little bit less. I don't know why. I would hope that we're not heading in that direction with electrics, because this is from. I was quite surprised to see it as a policy position in the Barbados budget, to be honest, because I didn't necessarily hear people in Barbados clamoring for something of this sort, even though I understand, the whole decarbonization and environmental arguments, but it seemed a little bit surprising to me. So it's one that I'll be watching as that one progresses down the line to see.
But you don't think it might have something to do with thinking of the future was going to be available? Because we don't make cars. These import all our cars.
It's a good point, and I think you always have to be looking ahead. But it just feels peculiar to me. These things are always about demand and supply, and right now, the difficulty with electrics is, when you satisfy the demand, however much demand there is, there has to be an equivalent, as Andre said, there infrastructure program associated with that to carry.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
it does feel as though. It's one for the future, but I don't know if the agents are queuing up to say, let's get into this.
It's an interesting one because I don't think it's a point for now. I know the Prime Minister always talking about he could walk and chew gum and all kind of things, so she could deal with now and look at the future and stuff at the same time. I don't think it does anything for the agents at the moment. While I get it, at the same time, you wonder why we pursuing it so heavily as a policy. I get that we want to stay on the cutting edge of technology and what have you, and we probably want to leapfrog over oil despite drilling for oil, but that's another point. So we drilling for oil while preparing for electric. But that's another conversation there, while at the same time building the hotels on the beaches. But y'all know how I am with that, but so I didn't get there. So it's an interesting one there. And then you wonder a couple of things, because even in that budget, there was a lot of, what's the word? There's a lot of stuff. I'm trying to find the right phrase without, I don't want to sound too negative, right? There's a lot of stuff that up there in the sky that sound good, right?
Okay.
But then a couple of things that sound to be missing was, okay, that's good, but where is the investment in the education needed to support these industries in technology and all that kind of stuff? You know what I mean? Are we continuously going down the place where we're building economies based on us being consumers and not innovators and not creators and what have you? And that was the thing to me. When I listened, that was the thing that was missing. There was a lot of us consuming, a lot of us bringing in, a lot of us borrowing from, buying from, in order to seem like we on the cutting edge. But to me, cutting edge is when we producing our own. And when we looking to put the investment into the education around the technologies or what have you, for us to build our own one, and in many cases, for us to exploit some that are already out there.
Absolutely.
And that's what was missing for me.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And our own is quite an important point that you made there, and it's quite relevant for where we are this evening with our discussion, because this is very much about owning something and doing it yourself and moving things forward. So it's a valid point, really, really valid point.
Yeah. And it was interesting too that it was a budget for the whole week you heard about it, but there was no opposition to do anything. For whatever reason, this time around, it hit home harder to me this time than the first time around when it first happened.
There's no opposition.
Yeah, because you were coming out to that election and that was raw and that was a surprise and that was different. This time around, it was even more glaring.
Yeah.
That
But the bond
30 people talking, but nobody are talking against it. Nobody
Yeah.
are offering the constructive criticism. I saw the former government, can't be called the former government. Well, former government from a few cycles ago, the Democratic Labour Party did some stuff on Zoom and that kind of stuff. But to be honest with you, nobody are listening.
Who's listening
Again,
Who's
the
listening?
audience.
A few people, and quite frankly, I found the presentation a bit poor as well. Just from my way, it was a very poor presentation. I think at one point somebody looked like they was in the bedroom and that kind of stuff. You're a serious political party and stuff, man. You ain't doing that nonsense.
Wow.
You can at least try to present it in a decent way to let people know that you are, think that you're serious or know that you're serious. I just thought it was poorly organized in my opinion. So that summed up a lot of the problem politically that you have in Barbados anyway.
It's true. It's true.
So it was interesting. But I want to see more on the investment side.
Oh, absolutely. Wow. So look, we rooting ourselves in the Caribbean this evening.
Yeah, man.
Very important conversation, I think, particularly for how we look at the arts. And I know you guys have always had very strong opinions about the arts and how we treat them in the region. So this should be quite interesting.
Yeah, man. I think, look, we've always said when it comes to the arts and sports, people treat them as hobbies or extracurricular activities. Is pretty much the way how we treat it. If you happen to miss and be real good and something happened for you, well done. That's you. You're exceptional. The rest, well, go to university, do a proper subject.
Get a proper job.
Because this stuff ain't gonna really happen for everybody, and chances are not you. And ain't really nothing real anyway. So the few people that happen to make a life out of doing a non-real job, good on them. This despite consuming so many of the arts from outside the region at the same time.
Oh yeah.
But don't ask me the double speak. They're on that one. But it's a real interesting conversation, and one that we as a region we really should have. The arts, what more can be done? What can we do? Look at those who are succeeding across the region, and there are plenty, if you care to look, who are succeeding and doing well. So that's the conversation that we're gonna have today. And we're gonna jump into St. Vincent, and we're gonna have Calvert Jones, who's gonna join us and have that conversation as we look at the arts across the region.
Well, let's just introduce people to him.
Learn that until much later on, I think. But never work for other people at what you do. Always remember that the reason that you initially started working was that there was something inside yourself that you felt that if you could manifest it in some way, you would understand more about yourself and how you coexist with the rest of society. And I think it's terribly dangerous for an artist to fulfill other people's expectations. I think they generally produce their worst work when they do that. And if the other thing I would say is that if you feel safe in the area that you're working in, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little further into the water than you feel you're capable of being. Go a little bit out of your depth. And when you don't feel that your feet are quite touching the bottom, you're just about in the right place to do something exciting.
Wow.
So guys in the audience, welcome Calvert Jones. Welcome, Calvert.
Thank you very much, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I want to say, first of all, I need some of those tomatoes that was it?
He going to Nando's this weekend again. He'll get some fresh ones for you.
If I dare to call him the secondary vegetarian because he consumes meat.
Jesus, Lord have mercy.
But Calvert, you were led to believe he was going vegetarian as well, right? Until we qualified.
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
I was.
Case closed.
Calvert, you can let him lead you up. You can let him lead you up that path. Now don't follow these troublemakers. How are you, brother?
What? I'm fine, thanks, man. It's a beautiful day. Beautiful day. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be
Awesome.
here.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, look, welcome to the living room, man. You know, you might have come in there in a slightly wrong way, but I'll forgive you for that. That's okay. I don't mind. I
The
honestly
man,
don't mind.
just asked for the tomatoes, Mark.
I don't
After you.
understand.
Very touchy.
That's a lot, eh?
I am not getting touches.
I'm beginning to wonder if he actually had a salad for treat enough. He's too defensive.
Yeah. He said he has a red meat.
Oh, but
I think he had a little salad on the side. On the side. I think that's what happened. But anyhow,
You're
we
right,
can,
man.
we can
You're right.
take that a
You're
little
right.
bit more.
Right. You know, Calvert, we love to have some fun in the living room, and we get across a lot of things, and we started to look at your work, and one of the things that I realized that whenever we put your work on our page, the places just blow up. You know, it's like, man, this guy is absolutely incredible. So, you know, we are looking forward to talking to you about everything around your journey. And I want to start, first of all, with you growing up in St. Vincent. You know, you can tell our audience where you're from and those formative years and how you grew up in rural St. Vincent and how that kind of sowed the seed a little bit.
Right. So I grew up in the small village of Cedars in the countryside of St. Vincent, and I went to school in Kingstown. It's a primary and secondary, and on that daily commute, you know, we'd pass all the scenic views, you know, so whether they be market people on the side of the road, whether it was fish that was selling on the side of the road, the farmers, just the natural beauty that always struck out to me as something powerful about St. Vincent. And at the time, I did have a talent for art, but that wasn't something that I practiced. You know, I did it in secondary school, but I followed the traditional route of doing traditional realism. So that was pretty much photorealistic type renditions of what I saw. And while it sold locally, you know, there was some inherent challenges with that expression. One of the challenges I experienced was persons would buy it if it matched the decor or the color of the wall, or if the wife loved the colors, because it's pretty much the wife that made these decisions. We are just in the back end of things as guys, but the wife is who finally decides what happens there. So moving on, after high school and college, I went into the tech industry, and I worked there for a while. And my last job was as the regional operations manager for Carib Cable. I was based in initially St. Vincent, then Antigua, then St. Lucia, then back to Antigua. And during that stint, I traveled around to a lot of the islands. And even while living in those islands, what dawned on me is how much we're actually similar and not as much different as we think, you know. Whether it's the same fishing, whether it's the carnival, whether it's vibe, the cultural expressions, beats, the rhythm, the music. There's so much similarity in that vibe and expression for us as Caribbean people. And when I left that job in 2010 and decided to come back here, I went on a journey to rediscover what made us unique as Vincentians. And that took me into areas of our heritage that surrounded our Garifuna and Kalinago people, and there's an amazing legacy surrounding that entire story. And how I bring that to life and incorporate the vibe and the energy was a journey that I embarked on. So my work then moved from being the traditional realism into what you're seeing here at the back, the very colorful expressions of Caribbean vibe. Because to me, it wasn't a situation of just capturing the subject. It was how do you bring that energy and that passion and that love and that fun into something that somebody feels by looking at it.
And before
I was gonna say before you take us on that journey and where you are currently and stuff, let's go back a little bit further. What drove you to want to capture these landscapes? What introduced you to art? What made you feel, or what made you want to, or have a passion for capturing these landscapes and, you know, in art?
just again the love and just the commute from back and forth in my school days, seeing all of this stuff. It was always something that struck out to me how beautiful it was. And I was somebody who was always appreciative of whatever condition I was in, of my environment, of the people around me. So that sentiment and natural fauna and flora always struck out. I've been somebody who loves adventure and who travels up and down. As you know, we have 32 islands and keys. So the sort of expanse we have in our country alone. I mean, you move from a volcano to pristine white sand beaches in the Grenadines, and just about every sort of experience that you could have in one country. And that is something that has always been impactful to me, and something I sought to always capture.
Look, Calvert, you said something interesting there at the beginning. You said you were skilled as an artist, but you weren't practicing. So as a child, or let's say even a teenager while you were at school, did you ever think that you would be doing art as your full-time career, or did you just think it'd be a thing that you would walk around with a sketch pad and draw nice photorealistic pictures?
Okay, I think you can see the laugh right now.
I see it. Yeah.
Because as you guys said a bit earlier, the creative art is something that is going through an evolutionary process in the Caribbean, and we're getting to places, and it's great to see countries like Jamaica over what they've done with music, even Barbados with what they've done with Rihanna and what Rihanna is doing, and even the fact that she's a national hero and she's a creative professional. And other places like Trinidad and Jamaica with Jab, the expressions there. Every island you could pretty much think about. It's the creative art is growing, and in the new digital landscape and where we are heading as digital technology continues to evolve and to expand, what we are seeing here is the emergence of the creative art in the forefront of that storyline. So value and what we perceive as value is continually bending and twisting back to the creative sector. So the traditional areas of expertise like medicine or engineering and architecture, these sort of careers, that were enforced on our previous generations. And coming back to your initial question, my parents wanted me to pursue medicine. And I wasn't. What I would tell persons these days when I write any note is that, look, I was meant to be a doctor, so that's why the handwriting is that bad. That's the best connection I have right now to the medicine. And, incidentally, I did sciences right up to college. Physics, chemistry, all these things, and I excelled in sciences. I was very good. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Some of my colleagues, some of my former schoolmates are top surgeons and engineers right now, and it's amazing that I found myself back in art. But again, I couldn't separate myself from what was inherently and a deep appreciation of our culture and expression, and that was in me birthing the opportunity to come out. So I always thought that, hey, while I do have the academic ability to pursue something, there was something that was in me that needed to be expressed.
And how was that navigated through your school life? Because you in fact, I'll come back to that, because you said something interesting there just now, that Rihanna is a creative professional, right?
That's Dr. Lord there at St. He's a doctor, actually. He's taking offense.
Come on, Adrian. you mentioned that Rihanna is a creative professional, but not a lot of people actually think about Rihanna in that way. And perhaps she is one of the region's biggest creative professional, although some people might argue about that. But how do we take opportunity from a global icon who is a creative professional and start to change the narrative? Because I'm sure when you were going to school, there was a reason why you went up through the sciences, because there was art on the other side, and it was like, What was it like with your teachers going through school?
Well, I used to talk a lot. I mean, I personally found the classes boring. That's one. And I was just generally very intelligent. So to be honest, it was just a breeze going through school, and physics was really my favorite subject. And even to this day, quantum physics and a lot of theories surrounding quantum physics and how they relate to our consciousness as beings and people are things I still look into. And just to relate that to my art, one of the ways I capture the vibe and the energy is through color psychology.
Yeah.
And color psychology, the fundamental backdrop of that is that colors have frequency, and frequencies have a particular inclination to persuade you into feeling a particular thing. And we speaking about feelings and color and that sort of stuff. And MIT, for instance, have I think it's MIT. Some research was done where scientists discovered that if you're bombarded with radio electromagnetic frequencies, that it can be determined what your particular state of feeling is. And so, so going back to what the science is and what I experience in the science and how they relate to what I am doing now and how that is influenced, it's really, it's an ever evolving conversation.
So tell me some more about colors and what do some of those colors mean to me as an individual, even though I might not even recognize it, because you talk about color psychology. Tell me a little bit more.
Right. So, okay, for instance, if the concept is a fundamental aspect of branding. If you look at every fast food joint, well, most I would imagine, you'd always see a combination of yellows and reds. Now, that particular combination triggers your excitement and your hunger. Now, red by itself is passion, and yellow is energetic. But together, what they do is they subconsciously trigger your hunger.
Chefette, McDonald's,
Right.
KFC.
Tomatoes.
TNT fly. Passion.
Oh, yes.
Wow. Back of them,
Hey, like back of them, man.
Yeah, boy.
And if you look at the cooler side of things, like for instance, the logo of Pepsi, they're blues. They're predominantly blue colors. Blues are the cooler end of things, and these are usually associated with drinks, and because they trigger a relaxation as opposed to your passion, right? So that combination is something that I use creatively in the art as well, to either evoke some feeling of excitement of a particular feeling. So you're looking at, for instance, this painting in the back here. Right.
Other side, yeah. So, there's a mirror.
I realize, confusing. So, yeah, it's besides the fact that it's a nice angle of capture, of the subject. You could sort of feel what it feels like in there. All the hues that are there, the pinks and the more the blues and yellows, they all combine to give you a unique experience, which is, it's really just Caribbean style and Caribbean lifestyle. And you feel that fun, and it's always like a childish fun because the colors are also pastel. They're not necessarily very heavy. All right, so it's a childish fun with this that we get being at a race like this. That comes out in this particular piece.
Wow.
You mentioned earlier that you were supposed to be a doctor, according to your appearance. But I can imagine that you were always drawing or painting or what have you. I can see it.
It looks pretty good to me. It looks okay to me.
But I can imagine at school you were...
Yes.
I can imagine at school you were always painting or drawing or what have you, and probably at home as well. I wonder what was the potential attitude of your parents and teachers when they saw that seemed to have been your passion.
Well, my mom always encouraged me because
Nice.
I actually started to sell commercially in Form 5, which is, in high school. That's the first time I sold anything. And she was that
You remember
person
what the
that I
painting
always,
was that you sold first?
it was a painting of Jesus on cloth. I did,
Okay.
right? For church, yeah. I remember I had to use oil paints, and it was the first time I ever used oil paints. And it was in a small basement room, so the stench of the oil and the scent is still with me, to be honest.
Wow.
But anyway, I did art pretty much, well, for the entire high school time, and it was always one of the subjects that it gave me a good average as well, because I don't think I ever got lower than 88%, to be honest. In it, I did get a grade 2. I didn't know what happened there. But but it was always a subject I was respected for by my mates, by my parents, but never thought of on a serious basis to be an actual career.
But you went off into the corporate world, as you said previously. You didn't go directly or full time into your art. So tell us a bit about how rather than going straight there, you went into a career. I think you said an operations manager for a communications company. Tell us a bit about that phase.
All right. So prior to that, I was in IT, and IT is the first thing I really started off in. Computers and computer engineering was one of the things I was also interested in. And I actually was an IT consultant as well prior to going to Calvert Cable. And while I was there, I had what I would probably say is more of a visionary personality, because I would look at things and look at a creative way to represent them, or to solve a problem, or to bring a creative approach. And that channeled its way very nicely into sales and marketing. And because I had the IT backdrop, and because I was also somebody who could motivate and encourage people, I found myself in the regional operational department of that company. And so that creative element was still a central part of who I was, because I was relied on heavily for marketing and for sales techniques. And I see that as no different from what I'm doing now. And I think in some way, it very much prepared me for my life as a full-time artist and entrepreneur, and the journey I have ahead.
Wow.
I was actually going to ask a question along that lines, because I'm hearing a lot of myself in you to some extent, because I also work in technology. I'm also in IT, but I'm also a poet and a songwriter. I do quite a bit of that almost every day.
Great.
But what I find is that in my career, my technical vocation, I do bring a lot of that creative thought into the way I present a technology roadmap, or the way I talk about software systems architecture and so on. So I'm wondering the other way around. Do you find that because you also have that technical background, and there can be passion? I do have a passion for technology and for the technical sciences as well. But do you find the other way around as well? Now that you are focused on art as your career, that there is that side of engineering that gives you a little bit of buzz, or gives you a bit of a different way of sort of expressing art as well, to the extent that there's no real separation between these two domains. It's science, it's art, but they're just ways of expressing what we see in front of us, and what we feel inside.
Like I think I'd mentioned earlier, that job world prepared me for what is happening now. I guess we might go in a bit later to the world of NFTs and what's happening now with the blockchain technology, with programming, where computer programming is taking us, with the birth and dawn of AI doing several things across the digital platforms now. That backdrop prepared me for a lot of things that you have to do behind the scenes. Because I built my own website. It's not the most professional thing, but it serves the job.
Yeah.
It does the job. And being an entrepreneur now, you kind of have to have an overarching understanding of the different components of what you're about and what you're doing. So the talent is really a small percentage of it. Technology plays a big role because you have the social media pages to manage, you have that space to navigate.
Yep.
You have sales techniques that I would have learned before. Some of these are employed right now up to today.
And the systems thinking as well.
I'm sorry?
The systems thinking.
The
systems thinking.
Systems thinking.
Oh yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's all part and parcel of my experience, and it's a back and forth of these skill sets that lend themselves to making me an artist that people like to see and who has a story that I want to share with the world.
Yeah. I want to explore something there because you were in the corporate world. Now, very often in the Caribbean, we think if this is the career path I've chosen, this is the career path I'm in until I retire. And we have that very what you call a fixed mindset, pretty much, as opposed to a growth mindset, which clearly you have. I'm just wondering, how was the thought process to transition from perhaps what was comfortable to taking the leap, and I'm sure the risk, to pursue your passion, make a business out of it? Perhaps, I don't want to age you, but later on, in workhood, so to speak. I'm just wondering that, and this is bigger than art now. This is, many people are
it's a fundamental point.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
grappling with, do I stick or do I stay? Or dare? I might as well stay because I've invested so much time. I've lost the time to pursue my passion now. That's gone. I just wonder if you can spend a few minutes talking about that thought process as you were making that transition.
Yeah, well, to be honest, and great question. Because I know this happens to a lot of people now, and with what's happening now with the global economy, you can't be too certain of what's going to happen next. And the creative art and the creative way of thinking and solving problems is always going to be there with us. Now, in my particular case, I had moved to Antigua in 2004, and I moved to St. Lucia in 2008. I moved back to Antigua in 2009. And because I was regional, I was traveling up and down. And we had, at that point, I was spending a lot less time than I was, in Antigua and St. Lucia than I was in St. Vincent. And I decided to make that move back home. But the company as well had just started a branch in Barbados. And, I was being pulled all over. And it was a challenge for me. And I had to make a hard decision. It was a very well-paying job, but the frustration of not being able to settle somewhere got to me. And at that point, I had to do it. A lot of people thought I was crazy. I at the time thought, God, you better know what you're doing because you keep telling me that this is not for me.
Despite it paying well. But how can you tell me so when I get a pay so good?
So I moved back here, and initially the transition was, how do I use my art to start a commercial career? And I then got into branding. One of the things I did was to first brand an entire bar where I painted a mural right around it, so it looked like if it had a 3D wrap. So I created an atmosphere around that looked like you were on the beach sitting around it. And it was some friends of mine, some childhood friends. I just requested that they get the paint, and I'd do it because visibility was something, and marketing. That you have to be out there to make an impression if you have to be seen.
Yeah.
And that's just the first step in making a name. So that bar was spoken about pretty much across the countryside. Everybody that passed is like, whoa, this is pretty nice. So a lot of questions were asked, and from that particular job, I landed some branding contracts with the National Beer Company, where I did the designs for all the shops across the country, and I branded a significant portion of them because I had a crew of guys who worked with me who did most of the paintings. They weren't necessarily art, but the concept of color psychology and how you grab attention, for me, translated from that bar concept to the brewery understanding that, listen, we have to be different with these shops. And I was very that particular deal. And then from there to branding work with a lot of different companies, and then photography, and then across that space. And then when I moved into that branding space, you know, the pull again to incorporate that vibe and that energy into the actual paintings on canvas was reinforced. And it was across that period that I developed and transitioned into what you're seeing here now, you know?
There was something in the sorry. There was something in the monologue. One of the phrases in there was when the artist tries to create people's or work towards people's expectations, it's when they do their worst work. There was something like that said in that monologue. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I definitely. That was actually part of my journey because I was influenced by one of the most popular artists here called Lennox Dinks Johnson. Dinks is what his signature is on his paintings, and his realism is top notch. You know, top notch, very very good, and he used oil paints. And most of the other prominent artists as well did realism, and you know, naturally I followed that pattern, and I was selling stuff, you know. So it was again a comfort zone. But when I got into photography, because what happened was social media had just started as well. And what I realized was, hey, I need to sell art, but how do I bring that audience to where I can display to them that these are the things I have for sale? So in my journey across the island, what I would do is I always take photos. And initially it wasn't professional. It was just with the cell phone. And I would post them because these were sites that people, you know, in the diaspora did not see for a while. And again, because social media was new, it triggered that nostalgia. It's like, hey, this guy's posting stuff today, let's follow his page. So I built a fan base of, well, no, it stands at 12,000.
Yeah.
But at that time, when I was hot with that page, it was actually third in the country in terms of the subscriber base on it. Okay. Right? So I had the diaspora tuned into that page, and I would regularly post my art as well. But it wasn't something that had the impact that I actually expected. I was still selling locally, but it never really did anything for me. And when I decided to start with these colors, you know, the sales dropped because people weren't used to them. It seemed strange. Yeah. And I think one of the critical turning points in my motivation factors, I should say, in my journey was a painting that was given officially to Fidel Castro by the Prime Minister. And it was one of this collection, one of the very first one that I did with all these colors.
Amazing.
And you know, when he came back, there was a picture of it that was floating around at the time. And a few persons tagged me in it. And when he came back, one of the things he also said is that Fidel wanted to meet me. And, you know, for me, being told that, hey, you know, you should probably pursue a career in medicine. But you drop what was comfortable on two occasions, because one, it was the employment, and then secondly, it was what was actually selling for me to go into this particular thing. And then realize that, hey, you know, it's so much potential. And this is also something that I had confidence in my own ability to chat and to execute that vision for myself. So that was a very motivational point for me.
Wow. So look, I mean, I'm going to come back to a point about when you really hit the buffers sometimes as a creative, but it would be good to look at some of your work, and particularly that whole point that you've been making around colors. And I'm going to start with this one, because when we put this up on let me put this up on our.
Do that again, man.
Yeah, let me put this up on our page. People just went crazy, but I think this image really brings through your point about the use of yellows and reds in particular, and the vibrancy. And of course, it's Prime Minister Motley, as everybody can see. Tell us the story behind this painting.
Right. So, as you know, Mia right now is the Caribbean sweetheart. And, I have followed, speeches from her, what she has been doing, subjects that she represented, such as what she has been doing for reparations. And this is actually something that our PM as well has been a very strong advocate for.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always impressed by her, her stature, her charisma, her depth as a leading female, and the fact that she represents what a lot of women aspire to be. They're a very strong leader that's respected, that they can look up to. And I wanted to capture her in a way that brought out the charisma, the passion, the intensity, and yet the vision of a leader. But not something that necessarily looked like, a very regal pose, but something that looked like fun, but still that had the sincerity behind it for you to catch the charisma and catch the vibe that, hey, this is somebody that connects with humans. This is somebody that connects with the people. So that particular photo was chosen for this reason, and the colors were chosen to evoke that sense of energy for what she stands for.
Incredible. Wow.
I feel it. Did you paint, when did you paint this?
This was done in December, right? This was before elections was called, that sort of stuff,
So
it went viral on LinkedIn pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
It went viral everywhere. I saw this popping up all over the place, man.
Yeah.
Well,
Has there been any contact with Prime Minister Motley? Because I'm sure, this will adorn the walls at Ilara Court at some point, surely.
I say, give me a price. Give me a price. I might sneak it.
I told them about 4 buyers, to be honest, for it.
Wow.
How high did the bidding go? You want to give me a range?
You can match it, Barry?
You never know. You never know.
It was initially priced at 4,000 US. Right?
Okay.
That's pocket money for him, man. That's pocket money for him.
Money.
He thought you was talking real cash.
Money I would like in my pocket.
After everything happened and transpired, it has taken on another approach, and Foreign Affairs here is handling a few things for me in that regard. So I don't want to let the cat out of the bag with it yet.
No, don't let the cat.
That's fine.
Given current global events and stature, standing, and stuff, this is more than a 5,000K picture.
Yeah, man.
Initially,
this is more than that.
Yeah.
Do you just call it by? There's a thing there. Do you have a name for the piece, or you just call it Portrait of Mia Motley? What do you have a name for it, or?
No, just Mia Motley.
Just Mia Motley. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think the colors and the expression speaks volumes. It's not one of those paintings that I thought that necessarily needed a particular name to have any other significance to it.
It's one for the ages, this one.
I like this. This is a brilliant.
It's so good.
This is an amazing
absolutely
painting. And you did it from a photo? You did it from your?
No, from a photo. From a photo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So actually, let's tackle this question, because Nicholas wrote this, I think, earlier on the page when we put this out earlier in the week around copyright issues of painting a person. And I thought, we raise that in the show. Thoughts?
Okay, thanks for that question, Nicholas. Yeah, there is some measure of it, but it depends. If the painting sells for $1 million, then for sure, I am going to have a legal case.
Image rights.
Yeah, so again, it's somewhat of an uncharted territory. It sort of depends on what the motive is and how commercial the intention is to capitalize on somebody else's creative work. you know, because a lot of my work are actually influenced by actual images I took, right? But in this particular case, I've never seen Mia in person, so I had to use references that are available of her. You know, so if, for instance, this was going to be turned into an NFT and it was going to be used for any massive commercial campaign, then for sure, then that photographer needs to be contacted, right?
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, because it's interesting because one of the things that I was listening to a podcast this week, and I think I tried to remember the artist, the rapper. Is it Talib Kweli? I can't remember what it is, but he shared a picture that was taken of him, and he shared it on his Instagram.
Right.
And the photographer is now taking him to court for using
His
their
pictures
photo,
work.
even though it's a photo
Of him.
So there's a lot of issues there regarding copyright, and apparently a public figure. If I take the picture, I don't need permission. It's now my photo, and even they can't use it. It's a weird one.
Well, again, I mean, in that case, you know, the court would have to decide. But then, what he did with it is probably what is going to be the most deciding factor, the largest deciding point with that, because
it was nice.
A friend of mine who was the former vice president of Sony Records once told me, if you do a painting of, let's say, Bob Marley, and you sell that painting for $50,000, you might not have the estate coming at you. But if you start to sell 1 million T-shirts for $50, then you're gonna have to prove that those T-shirts sold because of your brand or the way the image was represented, as opposed to the fact that it was Bob Marley. So, you know, even within the copyright world and the ways that things are expressed, there's some measure of give and take. And again, it comes down to intentions. Are you looking to profit off somebody else's copyright, or are you re-representing something that they have done, right? So that's the argument really at core of this, you know.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not just icons and images of people; it's everyday Caribbean life that you sometimes capture so effortlessly, I would say. And the old snow cone, you know, everybody across the Caribbean know what the snow cone man is, but you've kind of captured that image in such a profound way. Tell us a bit about that.
I hope it's one with me.
Right, so actually, he is applying the milk in this one.
Masterpiece, then. Masterpiece.
This guy. When I went to primary school, I don't know, he hasn't changed since, and everybody has said the same thing. He just looks the same, and he loves to wear striped shirts. And this is a photo I took at a I think it was a school fair or something. And you know, I just like the expression and the positions of the kids who were hanging around. And I said, you know what, I need to turn this into a painting, because that guy is almost like a timeless thing. And snow cones is something that you don't outgrow. You know, way into adulthood.
True.
If you see one, you're gonna grab it. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
So true.
And to me, you know, again, it has to have, because if you notice with this particular one, the backdrop moves from a sort of yellowy orange to that blue hue
relaxing
on the other end. Right. So they're hardly any reds, because you know, it's a beverage sort of. But at the same time, there's the energy and excitement with it. So that combination as well just makes you immerse yourself into that experience, because we always loved it, you know.
Of
and I think you capture the anticipation of the kids well.
Very well. Very well.
As well. Because whenever someone is making a snow cone for you, you can't help but watch them every step of the way. From the time they scoop all the ice and they're pushing anything. I mean, sometimes you're trying to make sure a bee don't go inside, but you can't help but watch it.
And if you're a Chicago person, you add some more of the condensed too.
Exactly. You say add a little bit more. Exactly. And I think you can see the anticipation in the kids there so well. What's one of your more favorite photos?
Photos.
Not photos, sorry, painting. Sorry, apology.
Actually, this one is one of the most favorite pieces I've done.
Why?
This was used by, well, here's why. Because there's so many things here. One, it's a traditional Caribbean scene, and if you ever experienced seeing fishing in any of the traditional fishing villages or communities across the islands, it's, well, I know for St. Vincent for sure, it's a time of celebration, and everybody lends a hand to pull this in, and everybody gets free fish at the end of that thing. So there's a underlying current of solidarity here, because everybody is pulling and tugging at a task that rewards the community. And this piece went on to, this was actually licensed by First Citizens Bank in Trinidad, well, First Citizens Group rather, and they did an entire campaign with it. So it made their prospectus. It was on billboards in Trinidad, in the Trinidad Guardian. It was also used on cover of a local tourism magazine.
What was the theme of Republic Bank's campaign?
Well, I think it was working together, if I'm correct. I can't recall the exact. Yeah, that was quite a few years ago. Yeah.
Oh wow! I like this, and I see what. Sorry, go ahead.
I've done a few editions of this as well, but this was the first one.
I was saying, I see what you mean by the colors, and the colors actually bringing a painting to life and creating emotion. Because when you look at the inspiration, the sand and stuff could actually look a bit dull. Probably the time of day that the photo was taken, and perhaps the type of camera used. But you elevated it, especially with the oranges and the yellows of the sand, and you can see it glistening off the waves and stuff as well. So I get what you mean with the colors. There's an energy that comes with it, and sometimes when you're trying to paint, I presume, but you see some pictures and stuff that they can come across a bit flat, and you can't see the energy in it. But you can see the energy and the struggle that the guys are doing to pull those things ashore. So I really like that.
Thank you.
I saw me like an art cricket though. I saw me pretty deep with this thing though.
Go ahead, man. Get in.
I can start a column.
You should. But Calvert, that's all part of the tropical realism vibe, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Is there any painting you've painted that you say, this one will never be sold? This one, you painted it, but it spoke to you when you were finished so much that you say, I'm keeping this.
All of them. That's right. No, literally that's how you feel, because you look at the client going off with it, and you're like, I had to do this. It's a moment, but you have to live. But to answer your question, I do have the more, what I would call the more, and what I coined this tropical realism as is nostalgically Caribbean.
I like it,
because it's the memory of what we have traditionally as Caribbean people. The vibe and the energy and the simplicity of life. This is what makes people in North America and wherever across the world come to our shores to vacation.
You better believe it.
This is what they like about the islands, and that color and that vibrancy. When you look at, for instance, Rihanna did a video with Man Down, I think is the name of that video. And in video, because video is something as well that I do, video production, but very little of it, even the edits that are done in video production, they convey a message based on the tones of the edit.
Yeah.
So in that particular video, I think they're very contrasty, they're very colorful, and you get a sense of the community vibe just looking at how profound those colors are. And again, it's something. What I'm doing is not really different from that particular form of creativity.
Also, I noticed in a lot of your stuff, the edges aren't really sharp. It's almost as though there's this. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks as though there's this intention that everything just sort of fades into each
Fades
other.
away. Yeah.
And it's not about getting the lines and the edges perfectly straight, but just about
It's fluid.
there's the
Fluidity.
fluidity, the simplicity, and the flow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is. Part of that, if you observe fishing boats, for instance, on the shoreline, one of the Rasta bars that you have across all these islands, or the rum shops, there's always a part where the paint is peeling off.
Yeah.
In the case of the fishing boats, stripped away, and it's weathered, and it tells a tale of a journey, right? And my art as well has that unfinished. Some persons say it's unfinished, but it's very resolved in my mind, because to me that is part of that imperfection. It's part of what makes us the perfect getaway spot for visitors. It's not because they can come down here and go to a skyrise building, or because they can go to a restaurant and eat the most delicious steak or whatever. Although that option is available, what they like is the Caribbean vibe, the Caribbean lifestyle, the beaches, the energy. So getting that imperfection in a perfect way was a deliberate part of why I do these lines and streaks. I try not to bother. If the paint runs, I just leave it.
Wow, that's incredible. And listen, we have a fairly wide Caribbean audience, and sometimes it's really good to help people when they're in with us to understand our neighbors and the nations around us, and why they are who they are. And your chief, tell us the story and along with the story of the painting.
Right. So the Garifuna people were a blend of the indigenous Carib Indians, and they were paler in complexion. They were lighter skinned, and Black Africans. Now, the origin of and the story of how these Africans came to the islands remains disputed. However, there seemed to have been a very convincing case that they were actually descendants, persons over from the Mali Empire, first land in Brazil, because even by Columbus's records, he said the Indians stated to him that Black men came trading with gold-tipped arrows from the south, right? And that his actual recollection of this, I think, is perhaps the most profound truth to the origin of these people. Anyway, they were very dominant in St. Vincent and Dominica, and St. Vincent was sort of like the last place that they were that they were defeated, because it was the first country in the Western Hemisphere that the British had to sign a treaty with, because they just couldn't defeat these people. They actually invented guerrilla warfare, because up to that point, and if you look at, for instance, in this painting, there's a English soldier, and they're in red and white. Back then, the army is dressed in very bright colors.
Yeah.
Today, when you look at any army across the world, they're in military fatigues, because we've since then learned that exactly. Camouflage is something that's necessary. However, the Garifuna people, while they had face paintings and stuff, they used guerrilla warfare. That was something that was inherently part of their process of defeating these colonialists. And what happened was, when I just came back here, there weren't many depictions of the national hero. And this guy, Sado Sutherland, is the leader of a tribe who has tried to promote that lifestyle and to promote that heritage that we have linked to these people. And I consulted him, and I told him, I wanted to depict our national hero in a way that made us feel proud as Vincentians, because there are paintings of him here, but he's still taking sword to his chest. And we made to feel as islanders that, hey, okay, the national hero was killed by a white man, and that's the only depiction that we have of him that is prominent at one of the historic sites. Now, an artist sought to do that. But as somebody who was just coming into this space with the colors and with the technique that I wanted to do to make the audience feel a sense of ownership and a sense of pride, I wanted to recreate and reinvent that. There were also other depictions of him as well, but some of them had him holding a pipe and smoking, or women around. So again, I wanted to have something that, because the name of it is Chief Chataway, Defender of Our People. There's a sense of there's a regal look to how he's represented here with his arms folded. But you could see that protective element of who he was, and you could see that there was some hero and something that was very profound in who he stood and who he was represented as.
Exactly. There's a reason why he was targeted, right? And the reason is really the reason is the story, not the story of his being not the story of his killing. And I really like that, because I was watching Netflix recently, and one of the things that I really like to watch is Viking movies. I don't know why. I just do.
I love that series, by the way.
Vikings. Yes, there's a new one on Netflix now. It started on history, the one where Ragnar Lothbrok, but now there's the one 100 years later, Vikings on Netflix. Yeah, following on, same story, Vikings, England on Netflix. But anyway, but it got me to thinking recently when I perused. So I started to peruse Netflix just because I always thinking about these things. And you notice how the history of so many nations and continents are told, and so many people that at the time may have been seen as pariahs or terrorists or what have you, have the stories retold in very heroic fashions, because of what they mean to the original cultures. So you got Vikings, there's many stories looking at the dynasties across China. You got many stories looking at the Mongols and stuff. Many stories looking at the conquest of North America we talked about Columbus just now. There's loads of stuff looking at the UK and loads of stuff, the Anglo and the Saxons and stuff. But not much about, and I know in this case is looking at the Amerindians and what have you in the region, but not much about our history pre the enslavement era. And not much about that. And unfortunately, we always wait for someone else to tell us the story. So we would always then complain, well, Hollywood ain't doing this and Hollywood ain't doing that. But I like the fact that you took it and said, no, there's a story to this person. Yeah. And the story is not his killing. The story is why he was targeted. And there's a lot to be told there for us to be proud of. And I think that's something that we as a region need to do a lot.
Brilliant.
And the arts is what's going to do that.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that, and as you mentioned that, I'll mention something that I discovered as well. Because when I started this initial page, bring persons from the diaspora to view my art, started to investigate Vincent words. So we have quite a few of them, but Bajan was something that came up. And in investigation, I don't know how true this information is, or factual rather, but perhaps you guys can confirm. It seemed to be Bajan in origin, but apparently Bajan was a slave that got into a lot of trouble, and he was really rebellious. And we would always say, "You think you're Bajan? Don't mess with me." And this is something that we would always say. And as simple as that story is, just imagine if, I guess you guys may have seen The Django. The Django is a film with was it Jamie Foxx?
Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah.
Just imagine if you have a Netflix movie of Bajan, but Bajan was a Bajan. Right? No, it's the relevance of that to culture and to tourism of the island is incredible.
Absolutely.
And I've said that to say that even with this particular painting and a lot of the other masterpieces that I'm doing is, while I've painted them as the artist, they have taken on a journey of their own as well. And that's usually how I look at any project I'm involved in. It has to stand on its own feet and has to continue to evolve independently of who I am, because I look at every creation as a legacy.
Wow.
So there's a movement to actually take this from being just a physical painting to the NFT blockchain space and to multi-series feature film that stars major actors.
I like it.
Right? And when you look at, for instance, there's the example of Black Panther, for instance. Now, the director who filmed that, while he was successful, he was not the most popular guy. Even what the actors were paid to do that film, it wasn't necessarily big budget. It was 200 million US to film that. But it grossed over, well, approximately $1.5 billion, what that returned for Marvel, right? And what has happened, I realize, in the last decade, and with the advent of social media, is that you have the global Black society and Black communities thirsty for rich Black content across
we want to
the
see
globe.
ourselves, man.
Yeah. You had, for instance, was it Nicolas Cage, I think. That was a Netflix series that has brought Netflix at the time when it came out. I don't know if you guys remember this.
Nick Cage was the Power Man.
Yeah. Yeah, that superhero who could take bullets and never die.
Power Man, yeah, I remember that.
Right?
Yeah.
And ever since then, we've seen the rise of Black heroes, Black celebrities, Black influencers. And again, it comes back to the whole Rihanna thing and what people like Usain Bolt are doing in sports. Yeah. But there's a right market now, because the narrative and the consciousness of Black people across the region and worldwide is thirsty for this stuff, because we've consumed other stuff before from other races and other demographics, and we want to see our own people.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the NFT and blockchain on quite a few occasions now, around how art is transitioning into that digital space and becoming very, very lucrative. Talk to our audience a little bit about what that means for you as an artist and what it means more globally, actually.
Well, the NFT, and for the benefit of those who are not familiar, it stands for non-fungible token. And essentially what it is a digital ledger that is registered on a decentralized network called the blockchain. Now, decentralized meaning it's not stored on a single server or computer. It's decentralized, so and public as well. So it can't be destroyed or it can't be modified. And what that represents is sort of like what a deed for a home represents to a homeowner. You might be sitting in your house, but the only proof that you own this house is whether or not you have a deed with your name on it. So it doesn't matter how long you live there, right? In a legal space, that deed is what makes sense to the bank on your financiers or in any legal transaction. And in the NFT and digital space, what the NFT is basically like a deed to something. And right now we are seeing a lot of digital artists capitalizing on it. So the NFT represents a specific digital art, like in the case of the Bored Ape series that are selling for millions now. But NFT can really be used as a proof of ownership for any particular asset, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's a home, because you pretty much gonna have happening. What is gonna start happening is that these will be registered on the blockchain, because on the blockchain they can't be destroyed, but they can be transferred in terms of ownership, and that is an eventuality that we have to face. The blockchain is there, it's decentralized, it's secure, it can't really be hacked. So it's a very secure way of storing that proof of ownership information. And what that means for creatives, especially because the creatives are the ones who are at the forefront right now of this conversation and this opportunity. What it means is that we can have a way of registering our copyright so that it's known worldwide who owns the rights to a particular image, or who owns a particular artwork, who owns a particular album, or it is unlimited at this point. And I'm also an advisor to the Minister of Tourism here on the island on the metaverse and how to capitalize on the creative industries in that
Tell me,
particular space.
tell me how we could capitalize on it, man. Because I can't picture walking up in the metaverse. So, tell me how we could capitalize on this thing.
Digital wine.
Did you whine? Did you whine? I get right to song.
Well, guys, Barbados has signed up to be one of this. Well, Barbados is selling land in the metaverse, I understand. Grenada has an ambassador now to the metaverse. The thing is, the metaverse, the concept of the metaverse is an ever-evolving space, and it is still growing. And for the benefit of the viewers and for you, just to introduce you to what that concept is, it's a convergence of the NFT and blockchain and Web 3.0. Now, Web 3.0 is an advanced internet as we now know it. Now, if you remember how the internet started, when the internet started, you just had text on a domain. Text. Then we moved to images, then we moved to videos, then we moved to things like on-demand television, then we moved to things like social media, then we moved to things like YouTube.
Streaming.
So streaming, like what we're doing now. And so it has evolved, but that's still only Web 2.0. So saying what the metaverse has the potential to be is right now still limited in imagination because we just don't know. Nobody could have predicted at the time when the internet came about. It would have been no, based on the fact that it started out with text. Now, how we capitalize is, and in the case of carnivals, as you mentioned, Andre, there's no digital wine, at least not yet. Right? But keep in mind that Ariana Grande and Travis Scott did some shows in the US.
Yeah.
And they had in excess of 40 million people attending those shows in the metaverse. Right? And the metaverse in this particular case is in a lesser form, in a gaming environment. And that was done over a game. So the gamers were literally logged into the game online and attended an event, like just like an activity you were doing on a television screen. Now, this is something that lends itself to us capitalizing on in our creative industries in the Caribbean. And you mentioned carnival, and I say how we do it now. There's music. So they went to this show. Music was heard. And in that particular space, everything essentially is down to a blockchain registration on Web 3.0. And a blockchain registration is essentially an NFT. So if you are to have your art played in a particular forum like that, it has to be registered as an NFT. So what you typically have is people like Rihanna or the soca artists going that route as well, because that is the only way that they can move from that physical environment of actual carnivals to that digital space. And because everything is tracked and it's across the blockchain, how you capitalize and how you earn on that is pretty much straightforward. You can't be cheated.
I wonder if you
interesting.
I wonder if you've got any perspective on, because I'm sure I read somewhere about the amount of processing power and computing power that it will continue to take to run these computations on the blockchain and do all of this commercial activity that we want to do in Web 3.0. What have you got any thoughts on that, actually? What that will mean in terms of the environmental hazards that we are trying to offset as we press ahead?
Yeah, that's one of the inherent challenges right now with blockchain and that technology. But what I would probably suggest or say where that is concerned is, I'd liken it to how television initially started. When there were these huge cameras that you'd have to take on your shoulder, and these digital tapes that you'd have to have a room full of. Right now, we store those in a cloud. They're stored on very small devices now. The technology has changed. So I think when we've discovered and implemented new ways of storing energy and also producing energy, because solar is still something that is ever evolving. I read the other day that there's some technology that allows you to now use windows as solar panels. We find more efficient ways of running these platforms, and it's going to get there, But for now, it does consume a lot of power.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it develops. I've got a couple other of your pieces.
Upper room. Gotta get the upper room before.
Yeah, I want to get to that one. I'll come to that in a second. But I wanted to. Yeah, I wanted to like because this. We did a show a few months ago on weed, right? And it was fascinating. And I would love to understand your thoughts around this piece in particular.
And I noticed on this piece he doesn't have an inspiration, but I wonder if it was him partaking.
Well, I guess that's a different kind of salad.
Wow.
Check mark top pocket. You never know what you might find.
Tomato leaves are actually quite similar.
You're right, Calvert. You're right.
Well, I borrowed from that famous painting.
Sistine Chapel.
Of the hand of God touching the hand of man, and it was conscious at that time. That's what it represented. And in Western society, we have had countless amount of people being sent to prison for marijuana, and the whole reason why it was actually criminalized in the first place is a contradictory one, and one that makes you wonder, was it really necessary? When we look at the use case scenario for it now and what's happening now with the medicinal industry and the fact that our island, for instance, was one of the I think perhaps the first in the region. I think Jamaica had something as well that was going on, but our Ministry of Agriculture was one of the guys that was at the forefront of pushing that industry here. So we now exporting medicinal marijuana, and it's about a transformation. And this was always a gift to us, and for some reason humanity had decriminalized it. And to me, that gift needed to be represented with something that was profound and something that had fame already attached to it in essentially being that same painting that I borrowed from. But I didn't want to have all the characters, so I just used both hands.
Wow. Wow. Incredible.
No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Upper room.
Yeah. Well, look, we're going to tell a little bit of a story on this one, because I think it's important to put this in context as we look at the last colonial meal. So let's watch this for a bit.
The purpose of art and artists in a people is to make material the intangible. It's to give a vision, record history, but also give a vision to a people. And the beauty of The Last Colonial Meal by Calvert Jones, its ability to make us realize how the struggles of so many different peoples are actually all related. There's a continuum in the struggle, in the mindset, in the goals. And the vibrant colors of the painting makes us realize this ain't history, it's alive, it's happening now, and makes us want to participate and get a seat at the table and continue that struggle. So just like the Last Supper with Jesus was really the beginning of something, right? The disciples were going to start the movement. The same way the people sitting at the last colonial meal are people who started something at different times, but still they were on an onward march towards decolonization. And they did it in different ways. Some of these people are literally freed people. Others freed countries, established nations, started organization meant to uplift or to reform. All these different angles to reform us, to undo what colonialism has done to us as a people. And to see that, yes, in fact, this is the same struggle that has been going on for years, and people are just passing on the baton, and then it's time for us to figure out personally what will be our contribution to this ongoing struggle.
We were part of a colonial empire that involved not only St. Vincent in the Caribbean, but the United States, Africa. And the characters who are depicted in this painting are very important in that link between all of these groups.
Having Joseph Chatoyer, who was the last Garifuna chief in St. Vincent and who is now the first recognized national hero of the island in a painting like The Last Colonial Meal, is very important for the legacy of the indigenous people of St. Vincent and in the region. Even after their exile from St. Vincent to Central America in 1797, they joined the Spanish troops and they met another group of black chiefs that were coming from Santo Domingo the year before, called the Negros Franceses. Despite their allegiance to the Spanish, the alliance between the Black Caribs and the Negros Franceses and their revolutionary ideas that forged their identity remained strong and led them to join other troops, including Simon Bolivar, on his journey to free South America.
Bringing all of these characters together, helps us to see the kind of link between all of them. I mean, what does Chatoyer have to do with Marcus Garvey and have to do with all of these others? So the conversation in that sense broadens. And the whole issue of the colonial meal is very important in that all of these people were in a sense struggling against colonialism. The struggle continues.
When you look at Bob Walk, from when he starts his journey up to where he left us, you know, and his music was about love, upliftment, you know, togetherness. And when you look at this painting, it's the same.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. And you're gonna have to talk us. You're gonna have to tell us about this because you know. We've just heard a lot of people speaking so passionately about it, Calvert. Talk us about the Last Colonial Meal.
All right, so The Last Colonial Meal is meant to be a painting that confronts biases, narratives, and you know, it sparks a conversation on who is there, why they were chosen, and why who was left out. And in doing so, we get into a historical context of Western society, the journey that we took, and how that journey has evolved over the centuries from pre-colonialism to where we are now. And through the central figure, we get to analyze how, whether it was religion or economics, because there are 30 pieces of gold in front of the central character's chest, or conflict, and subliminally, because, and that's not Jesus. That's a British colonial army general, but he's depicted to look like Jesus for a specific reason, because when you look at this painting, you think that is the Last Supper. But essentially what it is visual across different lifetimes, because these characters who are represented here, most of them are dead, with the exception of Louis Farrakhan, who in more recent times organized the Million Man March and who reportedly had 2 million black men. And you know, he had to be there for such a monumental achievement. Now, through the eyes of these persons and through what they represented, because what they represented is both allegorical as well as tangible. Because in the case of, for instance, Bob Marley stood for, you know, he was always an advocate of marijuana. You know, he told his mother school wasn't for him. He needed to do music. And everybody thought he was crazy, but you're not thinking he's crazy, no, because he's a legend, you know. And throughout the characters represented here, what you have is the quest to for self-determination, essentially. And whether that was through music, whether that was through standing up against the status quo, whether that was through Black economics, whether that was through women's rights, as in case of Harriet Tubman, or whether that was through education, like in the case of Eric Williams, who's represented with the yellow jacket and the headset coming down, or uniting the family. There are different causes that helps us to evolve as a nation and a people in Western society. And it's not necessarily a Black conversation either. It just so happens that most of these characters are Black. But you have Simon Bolivar, for instance, who was essentially a European aristocrat, but his job to liberate South America was, well, most of the countries in South America is a monumental one. And he needs to be represented because it's a Western society concept, and the painting goes beyond even the colors and the characters into aspects of its own geometry, right? So it has specific dimensions, but the specific dimensions also mean something. All right, so it's a conversational speak, and it's meant to spark debate and questions because
it certainly has.
Education happens.
I like it. Talk me through who's from left to right, I suppose, from the yellow, red to over to the blue. Who's depicted in?
Right, you have Elijah Muhammad, then you have Bob Marley, then you have John Jack Dessalines, then you have Prince Taki. He's sort of like behind two characters there, and then you have Marcus Garvey who's sitting at the front. Then you have Harriet Tubman. Then you have the Army General at the center. Then you have Booker T. Washington, who has his hand up like this. Then you have Joseph Chatoué, who's our national hero. Then you have Simon Bolivar. Then you have Dr. Eric Williams. Then you have Paul Bogle. Then Louis Farrakhan.
Why did you choose Booker T. Washington to be this particular character?
Okay, another thing I have to say is the way they were presented. One of the biggest challenges with painting this painting was to get references of how they look in a particular angle, because what I did is I recreated from looking at the actual original piece, the positions of the characters. So, you know, I had to look for a lot of references to a lot of these characters, and for some of them I didn't have any. So I had to imagine how they look in a sideways, in a side-on position. All right. So now, who went where is you know, I can't say there was too much thought into that.
Well, that was going to be my question.
Yes, I was going to ask. Yes.
I was going to ask why these particular positions.
Yeah, but they just mimic the original masterpiece.
What's on the table?
Oh, just food stuff. There's just bread. There's you know,
it's a meal.
Plates. Yeah, it's a meal.
Who? Did someone own this painting now, or?
Nah, this is one of them pieces that I hope would never sell.
Wait, but I asked you earlier. Are you
I did say,
this is the one. This is the one.
This is the one.
So here's the thing. How do you, what value do you assign to this? You know, how do you start to price something like this? You know, I think this is actually this is used in UE lectures by Dr. Cleve Scott in Barbados, right there. It was also on Russian national TV.
And is there anybody who you consider that could have been at the table but didn't make it?
Well, you know, there are a lot of characters.
I know.
We have, we have people like Malcolm X. I was asked, you know, why we didn't have Martin Luther King. But you see, Booker T was a precursor to all those guys. There was why use John Jack Dessalines as opposed to Saint? No, there are two reasons. Because he was like the engineer in any event of the entire thing, and he actually wrote the Constitution. So there's a political aspect to that, because we have to also write our laws. We have to also, in the case of Barbados, where you guys are now a republic.
A republic,
yeah.
Yeah, that's a part of the journey that we have to take as Western society, because at some point we have to define what we want as a society to govern us. We can't use these old-fashioned British laws and what we inherited from colonialism to chart our way forward in this new society.
Wow.
No, I really like this painting.
This is fabulous, man.
I might offer you
Incredible.
something for this painting. I would see. I would try. See if I could entice you. That's an amazing painting. I really like that painting. Yeah. So is that hung up at home at the moment?
Nah, that's in a vase. That's not even on display.
Wow.
I presume if some national galleries across the region want to show it, would you be? I guess I can imagine the insurance on that would be pretty steep, but I presume I think that's one that the region would want to see, though.
Yeah, actually, I have started discussions with a gallery in Jamaica, and they're exploring the virtual realm of showcasing work. And I hope to work with them as well to do that, because you no longer have to attend somewhere physically. I mean, what has happened now since the pandemic started, you have persons who are working and who have never showed up to their office. We have shows like these that and we discovered these opportunities because we were short. We couldn't travel around. We couldn't. There were restrictions.
Yeah.
And the digital space again continues to evolve, and the opportunities therein are enormous. So I have interest from this Jamaican guy, and I hope to engage them. And this should be one of the pieces that would be on display.
Other than
that, you have to come to St. Vincent to see it.
I come in St. Vincent.
Yeah, okay.
You hold on, because I think Angela has just gotten on to something here. Actually, she's saying that you should give the show a painting. Not the painting, a painting.
I think you should put the three of us. Do a painting with the three of us. Especially because you represent bald head men too, so you use one of me. So
King of the bald heads. Listen, you got the name right there. Kings of the bald heads.
I think so. On the virtual space, I think Barbados for a part of the Republic celebrations had a virtual art showing. Actually, it was pretty good because I went through it. It was really good actually going through it. It was pretty easy and simple, and you can get all the background. So yeah, the digital space is also a good space to show.
I was saying, even with that particular painting, thinking of a virtual world and putting that into a gaming engine, you could actually see yourself sitting at the table as well, and actually going into the picture itself. Which would be great.
And Karen, as well, Calvert, this one had to come up because the ladies are saying Caribbean women.
Of course.
Yeah. And again, that's part of the conversation. And again, remember, the painting is meant to provoke our biases.
Nice.
Right? So you're meant to look at this and find something wrong. Ask a question. Like that's part. And in the original one of the characters was a woman, and that's why I also represented only one woman in it.
Harriet. Not even a Caribbean woman.
Well, it's Western society, really. So it's from South America to North America. Yeah. I actually have to do a Caribbean version to it, and that will be done.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, it's a story that lends itself to confronting biases, and this is one of the biases I confronted in a video that I also created with a local psychologist, LaFern Fraser, who has done a lot of women's studies, and she presented that position on this particular case. Why only one woman, and how does this painting also allow us to evaluate perceptions of beauty and perceptions of culture and inheritance that we got that were colonial. So again, it lends itself to that, and that it's great that is said, because that is one of the things that we need to have happen.
Well, it's stimulating the right conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So look, I've got one more, because I know that you're doing a bit of a work in progress at the moment. Bet you can tell us a bit about this.
Yeah. So this is digital carnival, like Andre.
I feel it.
Okay, this was
who's in there?
inspired. Right, so we have Skinny Fabulous on the left, then you have
Yeah.
Bungie, then you have Michelle, then you have Mr. Killer. Now, this I borrowed from that Mount Rushmore concept
Mount Rushmore.
for this painting, and the reason why I did this is you guys will remember a few years ago when there was the International Soca Monarch in Trinidad.
Yeah.
History was written when 3 persons won that, and one of them happened to be an outsider, which was Skinny Fabulous. In the case of the road march, again, that was won by Mr. Killer. And to me, the fabric again that unites us as Caribbean people and makes us succeed is one that's predominantly of how we can unify to take ourselves forward, because it's not we're a small island states, and like your Prime Minister Mia said in her recent climate change speech, we just one disaster from being obliterated.
Yeah, true.
And we have to unite, whether they be culturally, artistically, or however, to chart our way forward in how we make a statement and make an impact to the rest of the world, and how we sustain and survive in this new global era. Right? And that unity of soca music and what it did, because when they did that music video, I was also doing digital promotions here for the local CDC, which is Carnival Development Corporation. And the sort of engagement we got on social media, I never saw those numbers. Everybody from Trinidad literally was logging in because it was done live. And we have a culture here where the guys, and it sort of goes back, I would imagine, to our Gary Funa days, because we a lot of warriors came from this island. We were fed back in those days. And when you look at how most of the country parties, whether it be at Soca Monarch or what you would call the rural carnival events, it's very aggressive. So you have this big on blazing with fire in the air, and the movements are just very aggressive. It's actually a phenomenon that you have to look at, and I'd probably invite you guys to check out, if you can, some of the videos and maybe some of your experience, right? This was heavily featured in this particular video. And it's something that I think is uniquely Vincentian, just like Grenada has capitalized on jab, and all sorts of people go to Jamaica to get painted up in oil. They use this particular Vincentian style of partying to be featured in that video, and their production route was done on one of the streets of the capital city, and they invited all the crews to do that, and it was an amazing thing. The engagement was very high, and it goes back again to how we need to chart our way forward, because it is Caribbean unity. Yes, soca and carnival, Trinidad is generally referred to as the mecca for carnival, but when you look at, for instance, statistics after carnival when Rihanna plays, they far outpace anything that Trinidad does. So how we unite, how we involve our brands and our leverage as in the celebrity circles to push our culture forward has to be a case of unity. And again, CARICOM comes into play, and this is a piece that I created for that particular reason, because that unity was iconic, and I needed to depict it in something that was stone, because Mount Rushmore stands as a monument of
iconic,
of American leadership and legacy.
I'm feeling it. Look, this is excellent stuff. And this was a fantastic conversation. So glad we had this conversation.
Tremendous.
Thank you.
And I really want to thank you for all the work you're doing. And we can see the Caribbean and the bringing together of the Caribbean as well in everything that you're doing. And the standard of which you approach every piece is just phenomenal. And I think it's brilliant. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's incredible work, and I wondered if there's just one piece of advice that perhaps you might want to offer to any young artists who might be, starting to travel the road, and you having gone down that road and recognizing the pitfalls, the challenges, the great opportunities, and everything else. If there's some advice that you would give to them as they start out on their journey,
or old artists as well.
Well,
Was that Philip?
Inspiration, Phil?
Is there even an old artist as well?
Oh, okay. Well, it's to have that vision and confidence that there's a space for you, because we only success is only one opportunity away. And I actually spend very little time painting as opposed to doing other things, and these other things are what make that journey something that people want to see and people want to hear from, which is why I'm here.
Wow.
All right. So other principles like discipline, for instance, always play a part. Sticking to it, and understanding the environment in which you operate and how you can actually lend to that environment in a different way that sets you apart from what's there already. And these are essentially the fundamentals of making it, I would say, out there.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. Well, look. Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you, Anne. I agree with you. It was a fantastic conversation, and great to hear the stories behind the mind, behind the vision that you have.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Beyond the art as well, it's fantastic to see someone going down a different path and taking the leap to follow their passion as well, but bringing in all the skills that they may have learned on the other journey, which tells you that nothing is lost. You can still pretty much use wherever journey you were on. There's something there. It wasn't, for naught. There's something there you can bring if you want to transition and do something else. And I think that's a fantastic story that everybody can learn from as well.
Thank you.
I think that's great. I think that's great. Really, really, really good. So we'll be looking forward. Do you want us to send you pictures for our thing, or we'll talk about that afterwards? We'll talk about that afterwards. But guys, you can follow. Say that again.
I hope you guys got NFT of this show, huh?
We should.
Yeah, especially the tomato moment.
I noticed you didn't answer that question though. But anyway. But that's all right. That's all right.
I'll keep the surprises.
That's good. That's good. And guys, you can follow Calvert's work as well on Tropical Realisms on Facebook, and the same thing on Instagram, I believe. We'll put the links to those as well in our chat and on our page that you guys can follow as well, because I think it's worth following. The amount of stuff that's there is just fantastic stuff, and it's the standard as well, the consistency.
Amazing.
Of the level of work, and then the thought process as well that goes into it. That's absolutely amazing. So guys, again, if you're watching on Tropical Realism's page, we are We Global. Feel free to come on over and follow our page as well. And guys, on We Global, as we just said, we'll share the links as well to Tropical Realisms, and you can go over there as well and follow Calvert, his work, and just follow the journey, because I got a feeling.
I know you see nothing yet.
I got a feeling that, you've been doing this for a while, Calvert, but I feel this is just the beginning. Something telling me so, that this is just the beginning on a steep upward trajectory. And we pray for that for you as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us, Calvert. It's been great having you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Oh,
excellent.
Yeah, brilliant.
All the best. All the best. Great job.
You as well.
Okay.
Take care. What a guy, man.
I need to invest in some art, and I feel I see in some people, Calvert first, and then some others around the region too. I need to get some art and stuff on these walls, man.
Well, that is the plan, boy. That's my plan. I want to visualize my Caribbean people in my home, man. I want to see them here. We've got some tremendous people out there.
Somebody asked if you married. We didn't ask that question, but you'll answer it.
Like it was the most important question to ask.
It seems so. Angela was waiting to get that one in. Sorry, Angela, you lost your moment there. Sorry. But yeah, we gotta invest in our own, tell our own stories, and I think hearing the stories behind a lot of the art is something that we need to do. And I like his vision for the journey as well. It may start with the stills, but then there's a journey to take it on to even bringing it into live action as well. And we need to do that.
Yeah, and we always say sometimes in the region, we don't like journey. because we've become very North American focused, and it comes to us ready done. So for us to go on journey can be very, very difficult. But I love the way that Calvert's journey went from what he was visualizing to initial photography into tropical realism, and he's still seeing where he's going further down the line. It's beautiful.
And also in that journey, at the beginning of it, he said he wasn't getting the same commissions. When he started going down the tropical realism route, people were like, nah, that don't look like what we're expecting.
Yeah.
But it just takes maybe a few people to start to see, actually, there's something deeper and more significant in this than what we were expecting. And that takes some time and commitment.
Yeah. And that transition out of the corporate world into, right, I'm going to focus here. He was very real about that, because I think for a lot of artists, that is very troublesome. Having the faith to take that leap is so hard in our region. And I mean, you would say that artists across the world will probably have that struggle, but I think in our region in particular, because of what we get instilled in us about, the medicine and the accountants and everything else, it's hard to make that transition. So I was pleased to hear that. Like, he took the plunge and went for it. Very inspirational.
Indeed. I think there's a lot that people can learn from that. Just the risk as well to, was this?
Sweet water.
At the very beginning, Mark offered some vegetables and salad.
Don't mind Didi. Don't pay him any money. Go and watch back from the beginning. You
as he eats salads now. He eats salads now.
He eats salads.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'll let you take from that what you want, Didi.
Go and watch back from the beginning,
salads, apparently. But no, I think there's a lot. There's a lot in there. Never losing your passion. It's never too late to transition to follow your passions as well.
Yeah.
And just taking the risks, because we as a region, as a people, we are very risk averse as well in a lot of things. And taking the risks and following it through, and not being afraid to just keep at the journey.
Keep evolving, man. Keep evolving.
It's some good stuff. But I can go and break my piggy bank and count and see if I can get and see
which one you aiming for, man?
Man, of course, I going for the upper room, the supper, man, the last colonial supper. That's where I going for. So I gotta know how much these things concoct too. I gotta see. But we would try it. I can try it. But look, everybody, indeed, I can do that. Everybody, look, thanks a lot for joining us. Again, as we said, if this is your first time here with us here on We Global, do us a favor, hit like, hit follow, ring the bell on YouTube so that you can get the notifications. Follow us on Instagram. We're on Twitter as well. We Global, West Indians, Global West Indians. Put in any of those and you'll find us. It's me, Andre, good friends Philip, and Mark, and we're here every Sunday. We have, good Caribbean conversations about what is happening across the region. Some interesting people, as we just had with Calvert. Do that and keep coming back all the time. For this particular show, hit share, tag 10 friends, whomever, and get them involved and get them come and listening to this show and being part of it. Especially if you know some young artists. I think some young artists would really, really, really benefit from this conversation. Yeah. So do that first. Thanks a lot. Enjoy your week. Until next time. Good vibes. Thanks, Nicholas.
West Indies 108 for 5.
Oh dear.